Good morning and welcome to Climate Matters, your monthly sustainability radio show brought to you by the City of Santa Fe. I'm your host, Neil Denton. We are airing every fourth Wednesday, 8:30 to 9, talking about sustainability and resilience issues in and around Santa Fe. This month, we're talking about messaging around climate change, why it matters, and how we should talk about it. And for that discussion, I'm joined by Carolyn Pars, CEO of Mind Over Markets. Good morning, Carolyn.
Hi, good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I'm looking forward to our discussion. So, tell us about Mind Over Markets. What is it?
Yeah, we are a messaging and marketing company that helps sustainable brands clarify their message so that they can grow, right? We're all about clarity over cleverness, although cleverness could be really good, but not for the sake of clarity, and especially in the energy sector. We work a lot there in health and wellness and green businesses. So Mind Over Markets, we're about to go on to our 20th anniversary next year, working in this space, and I love it. That's where my heart is.
Great. Working in this space and working in this place as well, right? You're here in Santa Fe.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, you and I have known each other over many years in many different roles. I remember when you were on the Recycling and Illegal Dumping Alliance when I was working for the state of New Mexico
I
back
know.
2015, 2016, around then.
I know. And you're a man of so many talents. Who knew? And then you become the sustainability officer of Santa Fe. Way to
Thank
go,
you,
Neil.
Carolyn. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the effects of climate change. They're in the news now more than ever. But we're seeing that only 1 in 4 Americans are highly concerned about it. Why would you say that is?
Yeah, this is a communications problem. And if I were to say what sounds more urgent to you, Neil, climate change or a pollution blanket overheating the earth? Like, what would make you more nervous? What would bring you to action more?
Yeah,
So,
pollution blanket overheating the earth sounds a little more concerning than the climate changing.
right, climate change, the word climate change is so big, it's amorphous. People can't wrap their head around it. How does it relate to me? How does it affect my life? So we geek out on the language around climate change, right? We use net zero, methane,
Yeah,
gas, greenhouse gases, all of that. And there's a great little story I'd like to share here to illustrate.
please do.
Um, John Marshall, who is a fellow marketing executive turned a climate activist, tells this story, right? He talks about aliens coming down to the planet, and they come down, they take a look around, and they end up beaming up 100 scientists, and they ask them, hey, what's going on your planet? And the aliens quickly learn that all of these scientists have concluded that pollution from our industrial activities is irreversibly heating up the world in a way that we're not going to be safely here. We're not going to be able to live safely. Well, that's like shocking. So they went back down to the planet. They beamed up another 100 people, but now it's just people like you and me, not scientists. And they ask them, hey, what's going on in your planet? And only one handful ever even heard of the word climate change, right? 24 never saw it, right? So it's actually a handful, mentioned climate change. 24 never heard of it. And 1 in 4 Americans in that group, right? Only one found it concerning, right? So the aliens go back to the scientists and said, hey, you got a big problem. This is really bad. Why don't you tell them what's going on? So they're like, well, we do. And people don't get it. It is a communications failure. And how we talk about climate change, how to everyday people, not just us, environmentalists, but to like your next door neighbor or someone in mid-America or someone on the Pacific Northeast, how we talk about it matters. Okay, so really, why everybody isn't as concerned as we might be is because they don't know, they don't get it. They don't care because they don't know the connection.
Yeah, it's really challenging, when we first learned what was going on with these extreme changes in our climate. Of course, we were all saying global warming.
Right.
We moved away from that because of the issues with understanding the concept of average, and people were saying, it's cold. How can the world be warming? When really it was a mean increase in the world temperature that we're talking about. So we changed climate change because we have different changing conditions depending on what part of the world you're in, what kind of ecosystem you're in. But it's still challenging to communicate because if we say greenhouse gases, then we kind of need to explain what the greenhouse effect is and what we're talking about. So, do you have some good ideas for ways we talk about climate change so people better understand?
Yeah, yeah. Everything you said is so right on, right? So instead of warming, what about overheating, right? Instead of climate, what about extreme weather, right? Do you see the difference there?
Yeah.
So I want, yeah, there's three things. There's three big things that if you can remember this in every one of those conversations, it will really, really help you. The first is use plain, everyday street language, right? You break it down, just like you said, greenhouse gases. Well, what about this massive pollution blanket that's overheating the earth, right? It's
Right.
visual. You can see it in your mind's eye and you get it. Um, uh, Way back in the 60s, I don't even know if you were born, but but
Not in
President
the 60s.
President Kennedy, right? When uh, he said, by the end of the decade, we will have a man walk on the moon, right, and get him back safely. And we all saw that in our heads. I was a little kid at the time, but we could visualize this man walking on the moon. And that is so key in messaging. If you can create a visual that sticks in their brains that they can get, that's why this pollution blanket, I love that language because people can see that and it can make sense to them instead of those words that sound like they come out of a science book, right? So bring it down to clarity and simplicity. Okay. So instead of talking about that 1.5 Celsius to meet the Paris Accord, talk about 9 degrees change, Fahrenheit change during the life of your child, right? So it's like it becomes more urgent, it becomes more real, which brings me to number 2, make it
Mhm.
personal. We love talking about the issue, right? The climate issue, when we really need to start with people, right? People making them care and making them matter. And how do you do that? You bring it home to them, like take it from the planet and bring it to the personal. So here's an example. There was a messaging test on climate change in Florida, and they tested 2 different messages. And one was they asked them to, here's the actual message, demand that we get to net zero emissions to stop climate change. And that was the message. The
All right.
second
What was the other one?
message, stop my flooding. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Which one do you think outscored?
Stop my flooding.
Stop
It's
my flooding
personal
4
and
times.
affect you and your property, as opposed to something that affects, people might see it as affecting others or being more of a long-term problem that their children or their grandchildren will have to face. It's not an urgent problem that they have to face. So I like
Exactly.
how stop my flooding or stop our flooding has some urgency to it, right? Because what's built into that is it's happening. The effects of the changing climate, the more extreme weather events, just like we saw with this last summer and the most intense forest fire in the state's history. A study came out from the Forest Service that the conditions from the changing climate are what led to it growing out of
Right.
control. So like there's a perfect example of we are facing these challenges right now, but so many people still think of it as something down the line, and a lot of that comes up as sea level rise.
Yes.
And then you might think, well, I don't live on the sea, so that's not a problem that affects me. So I like the messaging that you have there that makes it more personal.
It makes it relevant, right? Instead of zero emissions, it becomes about local flooding that's happening. So in the Southwest, here we are in the Southwest, the wildfires, right? Every summer and into the fall, we smell that smoke and our eyes get bloodshot. In Colorado, here's the thing: this is not left for the mountains anymore, right? We think, okay, that's in the mountains. I have a suburban home and I'm safe. But those mountain people, they, if they want to live up there. But here's the thing: the largest fire in the history of Colorado happened last year. Do you remember that? Last year, the Marshall fires, the two extreme weather conditions. It was incredibly windy and very, very dry. And what happened? That was like a catalyst for a fire to sweep through suburbia in the
Right.
Boulder County area, and 1,000 homes in one day got burnt down.
Yeah,
So no
tragic.
one's safe anymore, right? You think that it's not here in your front yard. People are still fundraising for the people who live in that area in the Superior, Colorado. So that's the thing. Make it local, make it relevant, make it real, so that it affects them. Last, okay, comment. One more thing I want you to remember. So what we say, right? Be clear, make it relevant, personal, local, and the third is who delivers the message. Okay, so who delivers the message matters. And here's an example. There's this group called Science Moms, and they are climate scientists. You can go to Science Moms, I believe it's .com. They're these climate scientists, geeky women who happen to be moms too, right? And they could, like anyone, any of the scientists, tell you how like the nitrogen levels that are in our wildfire smoke. But when asked why are they doing what they're doing, they talked about their children, right? They talked about wanting their kid to be able to go swim in the ocean, right? Like they did when they were little on a Sunday afternoon. And they talked about a forest, going through the forest and hearing the crunchy leaves and the moss. See, this chokes me up. I'm a mom, and I can relate to that. So that personal identity connection, who delivers the message, it heightens that response rate, and it heightens that emotional. Advertising and marketing and messaging has a very big emotional component. So the person that delivers the message really, really matters. So instead of pushing the issue, right, get personal again, invite them into a story where they're one of the characters. Okay.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And obviously, I work for the city of Santa Fe, and being from the government doesn't make you a very trusted messenger in our society. So that comes up a lot in the work we're trying to do and educating people. And
yeah,
it's really important that neighbors hear from neighbors, or business managers hear from other business managers. Just earlier today, I was talking about a educational workshop that we're working up related to food waste management, where we'll be inviting chefs and restaurant managers to come learn about ways that they can send their scraps to composting, send their prepared food to places like the Food Depot, where it can go to help feed people. And something we really want in the workshop is, one of the restaurants that has already opted in to composting.
Yes.
To talk about their experience, to talk about how it works, why it works, to talk about, the impacts on their budget, so that the people attending can hear from someone like them. And that's going to be much more effective than us, government wonks telling them the options that they have.
I love it. Now, as you said, food waste management, right? Right.
Yeah.
So
right.
Food waste management. I've worked in food waste a bit, right, and recycling and food waste. And then, what's more personal? Like half of the food that we have on our tables gets thrown away. Garbage, right? Like all of that food is gone and garbage and ends up in a landfill. Okay, so like that hamburger, that you half-eaten hamburger, that can grow new plants instead, and then you can just tell that story, right? So just like think about how, Neil, how you can break it down, right? Even if you have a bunch of engineers in the room, because I work with them, right? Simplicity, because we have so many marketing messages coming us, 3,000 a day, they say, coming to us, that we're like processing information so fast. Make it simple and make it easy to understand, and personal. So
Yeah.
how do you talk about climate change, Neil?
How do I talk about it? Well, for one, it really depends on the audience. I was thinking about the terminology you were using earlier with pollution. I'll talk to my children about it, but I can't talk about. They're young. They're 9 and 7, and I can't really talk about carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas emissions. Not easily, not without reminding them some things we've talked about. But they understand like pollution coming out of the tailpipe of the car.
Yes.
Like poisonous. So I'll use the word pollution. I'll be like, like the stuff that comes out of the back of the car that's not good for us to breathe. Because they understand the concept of like, dirty air or dirty water, and that being bad to breathe or bad to drink or swim in, and so on and so forth. And you can, use that terminology of pollution and the resources that we use, whether it's the soil that's going into the food we eat, or like I just mentioned, the water that we're drinking and potentially recreating in, the air we breathe, and just encouraging people to care about our home around us, the place that we all love. And another thing that's important, you'll notice even the way I'm saying we, not I. A lot of my messaging, it's important to just explain that like we're doing this. We're driving cleaner cars and choosing to ride bicycles, and we're improving our buildings to waste less energy. Please join us, as opposed to you should, kind of like a shaming
Right.
message, like you should do this, you should do that.
Right? Instead of
Yeah.
a demand.
Yeah, because if people, if you say you should do this, you should do that, most people are going to go on the defensive and say I'm not doing anything wrong. So you've already started off on the wrong foot. So I see the work that we here in Santa Fe are doing as a collaborative effort of everybody, every citizen, every visitor, for us to just take care of the place that we love. You don't want to come. So let's take visitors, for example. You don't want to come and like trash a place that you love visiting. You're not going around. Well, most people aren't going around throwing their trash on the ground. Some people are, and that's always working to encourage people not to litter. But it's the same sort of idea. You visit a place, you don't want your to be causing pollution. You don't want to be polluting the water. You don't want to be polluting the air. And so that's the way I talk about it. Just caring for our place, and the things that we love, and also like you were talking about the mothers talking about their children. That's a big motivating factor for me. I want to make sure that I leave the world a better place than when I came into it. I have the same sort of mentality. Let's say I go to a campsite, right? I want to leave the campsite better. That if there's some litter there when I got there, I'm not like, well, someone else left that here, it's not my problem. I try to leave it better than when I got there, so that the next person isn't showing up and seeing the litter. So I think of my life as the same sort of approach. I want to leave this. I want to leave Santa Fe. I want to leave New Mexico. I want to leave our country and the world a better place than when I found it.
Yeah. And that's a motivator for many people, right? Is leaving it better than how they found it. And that's the only thing I would say about that, Neil, is throw in a really personal story, a personal story to you, right? That's really meaningful, that it's going to be relatable, and it can deepen it even more. So they're like, yes, Maybe the struggle of it and how to overcome it, or what it really means to you to leave something better. How did you get taught that, right? How did that come about? So those kind of pieces can really add to the story, so that I start feeling it in my heart instead of just in my head.
Yeah, I hear you. It's really important to make it personal, to make, and to talk about, to use the language of I,
Right.
my experience. This is what I think, you know, I'm choosing to drive a fuel efficient vehicle. I drive a 2013 Civic and I love it. It goes as fast as I need to. I can zip around town, and hey, I'm a tall guy. You've seen me. I'm 6'4", and I fit in that car just fine. So there you go. There's an example of a
There you go. Now,
yeah.
remember back to the aliens, right? What if those aliens were really intelligent, right? And they said, hey, Earthlings, pay attention. You're building up this massive blanket of pollution that is overheating your home, and it's going to hurt the people and the things that you love. And you did this, and you can fix it. But the longer you wait, the harder it will get. Little different than talking about greenhouse gases, right? So like, notice the word love, the people that you love that are close to you, right? You bring in that piece to that. You color it with a visual that they understand, and you put some urgency, right? We call that in marketing agitating the problem. Okay, it's like putting a little salt on the wound. What are the stakes if you do nothing and you stay status quo? What can be lost here? And it's important to mention those things, even on websites, because we go right to solution if we don't act unless there's a sense of urgency. So create that urgency, because frankly, it's urgent, right? We know it is.
Yes.
And you don't forget not to say that, okay? Like that urgency, the stakes of what could happen, paint that in my mind, and then come in with solutions. And how if we come together, we can fix this. It's solvable.
Yeah, I like how you ended with that. It's solvable. We can fix this, because we need to be really careful in our messaging, not to be, leading with doom and gloom.
Yes.
If we don't do something, it's just going to be floods and fires and war, and because it's proven through, the principles of marketing and whatnot, that does not influence people. It makes people more likely to shut down, to retreat, to not want to engage.
To immobilize. You're absolutely right. So if you go too far on that, like the planet will end, and like too far, then it's going to just freeze people. But putting some of that, what we call agitate the problem, and so that they can have that feeling. Sometimes in that agitation, you're telling them things they don't even know that they should know, right?
Yes.
So yes, so we don't want to go into doom and gloom land, but we do want to we just want to paint the stakes and then give them solutions, right? So that they can be part of, not just like those people out there.
Yeah, and then keep supporting those solutions. Let's just think about, recycling, for example. A lot of us have been recycling for a long time.
Yes.
Sometimes the rules change, sometimes, like back in 2017, we changed the way that we were collecting from the curbside and things like that. We have to just keep offering support and education to help people know that A, what they're doing is right and it's supported, and B, here's how you do it. Here are some tools, like just, on our website, we have a database where you can search what's recyclable. Because most of us want to do the right thing. And, there's nothing worse than thinking you're doing the right thing and then learning you were doing it wrong, right? You've been recycling this item for 10 years and you just learned that it's not recyclable and you thought you were doing the right thing. So, we here at the City of Santa Fe, I'm in the Environmental Services Division, we're here to help people know what the right things are. And we're excited here very soon in the coming weeks. We're going to be launching a dashboard on our website called the Sustainability Dashboard. And it has a how you can help section, so people can plug in and get engaged and look through all the different things that we suggest you can do, whether it's planting a drought tolerant tree, choosing a different mode of transportation, bringing your own bag to the grocery store. Lots of ways that people can just choose to plug in.
I
We're also
love that.
coming out with we send out a residential services calendar every year, and in 2023, people will be getting a calendar mailed to them, or we're focused on bees and trees and water and all the things that people can do to support our pollinators, to support our trees. And so that's just, my part here for what we're doing at the city of Santa Fe, trying to support people on, with their interests to join us in protecting our home and loving our home. And we've got the slogan that hopefully people have seen. It's My Santa Fe. We're all caring for this place together.
That's totally. I love the My Santa Fe, right? And so let me ask you, out of all the, like, what was it? Did you get any aha moment by what I shared today? Was there one that kind of stood out that was like you think that might be the top one for maybe even your work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about the blanket term. I feel like that's
Ah,
better than greenhouse gases. I'm not sure about pollution when I'm talking about greenhouse gases, because it's a little different, because it's not necessarily about like breathing in pollution. But I wonder if I could say like a blanket of heat trapping gas or something like that.
yeah, you get into the word gas, it gets a little weird, right? I'm just going to say it gets a
Yeah.
little confusing, right? Because they're not smelling gas. I'm not smelling any gas. Are you?
Right.
But heat trapping cloud, something that they can relate
Trapping
to.
cloud, yeah.
Yeah, that actually traps it in. One of the things I love as a metaphor is our body. When they say, well, what's a couple of degrees up and down? Like, hey, it changes in 10 degrees in one day, in Santa Fe. So what's 1.5 Celsius? And the thing is that it's not about a variable in a day or time, right? It's over a long period. It's the average over a long period of time, kind of like our bodies. And so relating it right back
Right.
to the body, our body is 98 degrees. Now, if it goes up 10 degrees in one day, we're screwed. Okay. We could be dead. You're going to be dead. So that's the same thing as the planet. It's going up. The planet has a fever that hasn't broken. And if it doesn't break, right, you know what can happen? That's what we're talking about. So
I like that. The planet
yeah,
has a fever. You can teach people of any age that, you could talk to a 2-year-old about how the planet has a fever.
right. Exactly. That could be the book. The planet has a fever.
Right.
How are we going to help our planet with the thermometer coming out of the mouth? So yeah, and you say, well, that's good for a 3-year-old. It's good for a 33-year-old too. Okay,
Yeah.
to understand, because it's like, I get it, and my sister lives in Kentucky, and my brother-in-law, has a different party. He's more conservative, and he was hitting me with all these kind of things. Well, the degrees, or it's not the earth. It's the earth. It's not us. This has
Right.
happened before, and all these things, right? To be able to retort in a way that they can get, right? That they can understand, because they're hearing it in different ways. So we having that kind of like let's call it a climate change playbook.
Yeah.
That you can just keep those, and then people can get it. You can see their lights go off, right? So they understand. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you're having those courageous conversations, and I'm really glad you've joined me for my show this morning. You've been listening to Climate Matters. This is the monthly sustainability radio show brought to you by the city of Santa Fe. We're going to wrap up here quickly, but before we do that, Carolyn, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about Mind Over Markets?
awesome. Thank you. Just go to mindovermarkets.com, right? And you can get in touch with me there. My email is C as in Carolyn, Parrs, PARRS, at mindovermarkets.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Neil Denton. This has been Climate Matters, and I'll be on air again fourth Wednesday of next month, 8:30. Everyone have a great day.